Welcome to the Real Ref Report, a fun approach to improving officiating.
You suck, ref!
Keeping it real with real perspectives, educating the wrestling community, and building better relationships between officials, coaches, and wrestlers. Together, let's make reffing great again. Now, here's your host, Andy Aichele.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Real Ref Report. I'm excited to be back with you for episode 2. Thanks for all the love and support you guys have given me out on the mat. It's been fun to see people out there and say, oh, that's a real ref. And so it's really fun. I appreciate all the love. And I just want to say thanks to the Washington Wrestling Network for helping me with all this. Just to start off, we want to reiterate that this is a podcast to bring officials, coaches, wrestlers, community of wrestling together and understand each other better, and to not to bash officials. So I am an official. I'm going to talk to an official today. I'm really excited about my guest, and we're going to talk about some things that I think a lot of people want to hear, and that's about some stalling stuff, some pinning stuff, and just some different topics that everybody has different ideas on. So this is not, like I said, an officials bashing podcast, and we just want to help officials improve. And so with all that, I'm going to introduce my first guest. And this guy's from Snohomish, Washington. He's been a referee for 11 years, certified in Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. He's officiated in several prominent tournaments, including the Reno Tournament of Champions, NHSCA Virginia Beach Duels, AAU Disney Scholastic Duels, Freak Show, Rose City Invitational, Pat Coast, Northwest Duels, and the Washington State Tournament 3 times. My friend and mentor official, Timmy Douglass. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hey. Timmy, just to start off with, I want to say thank you for helping me get to where I'm at in refereeing, because it kind of takes multiple, it takes people that helping you, recommending you, and so you have been that guy for me, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's no issue at all. You're open to feedback, and I'll tell you what I see.
Yeah. So I've gotten to know Timmy a little bit, especially we work together in this area, but we also have been roommates at Freak Show and spent some time in Vegas down on the Strip. But really, it's been great to learn from you, and you're really highly respected in the state of Washington. I believe you're probably, if not the best, one of the top officials in the state. So thanks again for being here. I wanted to add one more thing. In Reno this year, I was just down there, and they were calling me Mr. Smooth Signals. And if that's my nickname in Reno, then this guy Timmy Douglass is the king smooth signal, because he's the king of the smooth signal. So I watch you, and I'm not copying you exactly. I kind of put my own flair to it. But where did you kind of start picking that up?
So it was probably like let's say 5 or 6 years ago when I started traveling. I was roomed with a guy named Chris Sheff, and over the tournament, the 2-day tournament, he watched me and gave me a list of about 15 mechanical things that didn't look good from his point of view, and I took all that, all his constructive criticism to heart and used it, and it's made a difference.
Yes, I bet that I met him in Vegas too. And I just wanted to add, that's really where I started to pick up on that stuff too. And I don't really see that going on a lot locally. As we travel and see more stuff around the nation, why do you think that that's more prominent in other places, but not so much in Washington?
I think on a national level, it's a focus, but when you go to the local associations, I think it's the same.
Yeah.
There's not, you got to think about, there's not a lot of officials doing those high level national tournaments. So the ones that aren't only are reffing 2 months of the year. So,
yeah. Well, I like watching you, and I learn from you. And so hopefully my signals stay pretty smooth. I appreciate all the help you give me.
Yeah. Anytime.
We did get to, for the first time in a while, we got to ref together locally. So let's talk about that tournament in just a second. But before we do, let me play this quick little intro here.
You're listening to the Real Ref Report. It's time now for On the Mat. On the Mat.
All right, out on the mat. We were, I won't say where we were, but we were at a tournament together, and we had some interesting stuff going on. One of the things that I had was a bite, and we talked about it after, and it was kind of a weird situation where I didn't see it, but in the rule book, in the case book, it talks about if you see top and bottom teeth marks, it's a flagrant. Now, it was weird because it's like automatic, but what do you think about could I have not called it in that situation, and why? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it is in your discretion to decide that if you're going to do it a flagrant or if it was unintentional. A lot of times when the offensive wrestlers doing a crossface, their forearm gets stuck in the defensive wrestler's mouth. It's hard to breathe. Maybe it's just a natural reaction, but yeah, you're right. If there's both sets, I lean more towards a flagrant, especially if I saw it. But if I didn't see it, it really has to be there has to be some indentations.
Yeah. In this case, there was, and the kid that did it, he kind of admitted to it. He said, "Yeah, I was a crossface, and I did clinch down," and he felt really remorseful, and it was kind of weird to have to say, "Well, he just said he did it, so we have to call it." But
yeah,
it's the first one I've ever had. I don't know how many you've had, or if you remember any.
I had one at gut check last year. I actually saw it, and I was like, "Really?" And I had to do the ejection report, all that good stuff. But yeah, that was the last one I've had of last year.
Yeah. All right. Now, I want to talk about another big one that I've had a few times, and everybody has a different opinion. The rule book can back up pretty much any opinion, I guess. But what I've had some stalling calls where coaches are a little upset, and I've seen you've really done a good job of calling stalling. You've learned, I think, traveling nationally, different places might call it different, or you get different recommendations. But just what is the when you're reffing a match, what is the main things that you call stalling for?
Well, one of them's if you're back straight out of the circle with no attempt to circle or defend. That's an easy one. Top, right in parallel, not working anything for 15, 20 seconds. On bottom, face on the mat, no hand fighting, not really working to base up, that type of stuff, or closing up, caging up, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So let me give you these examples of stalling calls that I made recently, and I want to get your thoughts on them. So the one in Reno, for one, I know for sure it was a stall call, but a lot of refs don't call it, and that's when standing position, guys behind him, and the wrestler who's in the advantage position jumps on like a double leg ride. And in the case book, it definitely says that that's delaying the match and that's a stall call. But I don't know that a lot of people read the case book. So have you seen that very often? And do you call it stalling first time?
So you're saying that the defensive wrestler stands up and then top guy puts his leg in?
He jumps on him with both feet. He had both feet on the ground and then jumped on him. Or he has one leg in and then he puts the other one in after he stands up. Yeah.
So
what do you think?
I mean, if it's intentional, if he intentionally jumps on that back to make it a potentially dangerous stoppage, yeah, it would definitely be stalling. But with the legs in, I'll give him two potentially dangerouses. So in that position, and then I'll decide who's causing that stoppage. Did top already have the legs in and green stood up? Mm-hmm. That'd be on the bottom wrestler. Or did bottom stand up and top put the legs in? That'd be on the top guy. So okay. I kind of watch the whole scenario, and I'll give him a couple freebies, but then I'm really looking at who's causing this stoppage.
Yeah. So I just down in Reno, I had called it stalling. He jumped on him. It was pretty blatant that it was delaying the match. And afterwards, the coach, he actually thanked me and said, they don't get that call very often. So that one. Then the next one I had, I called a stall call. The kid's putting double leg ride in, and the kid on bottom is bellied out, and he can't move because they really got the boots in deep, and his hips are up off the mat. and the guy on top's like trying to do a half, but he's kind of turtled up on bottom. And so the first time I call a stalemate, like you said, and then in the rule book, case book, it says multiple times can be called stalling, and they got to this position again 2 more times, and I decided that the top wrestler was the one causing the, and so I called him for stalling, and coach of course he was not happy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do the same thing. I'll give them two stalemates with the legs in. Then I'm really looking at who is bottom caged up or is top just riding, you know.
So in that situation, the bottom was, I mean, he wasn't, the coach did say, he said that the bottom guy has to open up. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of a freestyle rule, isn't it? Where he can still defend a half Nelson. He doesn't have to stick his arm out. Is that true?
He needs to work. I have to see him trying to either dig those legs out or peel in halves, stuff like that. You do what he can do in that position.
Yeah. Those situations are just hard for me, especially like they're on their feet. You feel like both guys could be stalling. It's like, who do I call this on? And I think those are the toughest ones. I did actually see a referee at a tournament I was at give the old double stall warning. It's in the rule book, but it's kind of a thing that among referees we talk about not doing. What are your thoughts on that?
I used to hate it, but it's grown on me. I did it once this year at a tournament. It was with the big boys, the heavies, and they were just dancing around, and neither of them were doing anything. And so I hit them both, and then they started wrestling.
I was actually thinking about that the other day. I am actually thinking like the double stall needs to come back because there's a lot of times where they're on their feet and I don't really know who to call it on, but they're stalling, right? And so I'm like, I don't want to call it double stall. And if I call it on this guy, that coach is going to be mad yelling at me. If I call it on this guy, that coach is going to be mad. And so I'm actually a fan of let's bring back this double stall call. But I think a lot of people might disagree with that.
I mean, there are instances like say that you're in the first overtime and they both have a stall warning already. They're not doing anything in that first overtime. You just hit them both for stall and put it in the second OT. End it there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I just want people out there to understand that stalling is not an easy call for referees. It's just something that, you know, we don't like. I mean, I don't like calling it. Maybe some refs do, but it's a tough call. And sometimes we just need to, the reason it's the first time is just a warning. And the point of it is to get them wrestling. And so I think a lot of guys get upset with the first one, but really, hopefully it works where they're like, okay, now I need to start attacking. Okay. What are your thoughts on this one? I called one. It was actually the same coach. And so I love this coach. He's a great coach, but his kid had been called for stalling twice already, and he was definitely stalling in the third round. I think he had maybe like a 4 or 5 point lead, and he really was not doing anything. Then he kind of got a cradle and just sat there for quite some time. And I was like, okay. And then the kid on bottom kind of reached out and had one hand around his leg, and they didn't move. And I ended up calling stalling on the top guy. And in the rule book, it does say that if you hold an arm bar, you hold a cradle and you don't try to turn them, that it's stalling. But I think the culture of wrestling these days is almost first time go stalemate. Is that what you think on that one?
Well, I've never had that happen to me, but I would lean more towards the stalemate, especially if that wrestler did have a leg, because it's a pinning combination. Armbar is easier to call stalling on just because they're sitting in the saddle. With the cradle, I mean, was he broken down to a hip or what kind of cradle was it?
At the beginning, he was on a hip. He didn't try to turn him, and then the kid on bottom came up to his knees, and they kind of stayed there.
Okay.
Too. So the guy on top, I think maybe if it was a first round stalemate, but the way the match was flowing, it just really felt like to me he was not trying to turn or trying to do anything. He was just trying to stall out. So
yeah, no, if that's what you felt, that was probably the right call. Especially with the flow of the match, how it was going. You know, he's He's just trying to take it to the finish line.
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, nobody likes the stall call, but they're just really hard to, and obviously I don't like to
yeah,
I don't like to get yelled at.
I could see the coach blowing up on that one.
Yeah. I mean, he still won the match, but he definitely, I just want everybody out there to understand that stalling is not an easy thing to call, and I try to make it pretty obvious before I call it. It's not
Yeah,
based
talk
on
to him, work to improve, work to
Yeah.
score, stuff like that. And if they're not going to listen to you, yeah, hit them.
Okay, the other thing I like to do in this segment is just talk about some referee mechanics. And you have, like I said earlier, some really good mechanics. So I'd like you to speak on a little bit why referee mechanics are important and what that even means. What does referee mechanics mean, and why is that important for referees to work on?
Well, mechanics are like signals, the way you're moving on the mat, as the whistle and the assistant. It's mainly the way you tell the story on the mat with your hands.
Yeah, so I see a lot of referees, they kind of, I don't want to sound rude, but they just look like they're kind of flailing around, and their body just kind of isn't moving how they want it to, and yeah. I don't know if they realize it. And so,
well, to their defense, like, they probably never watched themselves on video, and like that's where I really worked on or changed a few things. Is when I saw myself on video, I was like, oh, that's really ugly, and I was like, probably should fix that. So
yeah, so if we can give some tips to some referees out there, we would really encourage you to watch some video of yourself and work on those mechanics so that you just look more professional, and it makes you look more like you know what you're doing, and you're
exactly
looks like you're in control of the match. And sometimes people will trust your judgment a little more if you look confident, if you look composed, and not jumping around and just kind of out of sorts.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It makes you look better, and even if you're not, like, even say that you have great mechanics, but you're still like growing as an official, you can blend in.
Yeah, I mean, when I was down in Reno, they did not know me from anyone, and so they ended up moving me to a different section of mats after they dubbed me Mr. Smooth Signal, and so people notice. And so I think if you're a referee out there, a young referee or even an older referee, watch yourself and watch some. I started actually watching college. I mean, I love watching college wrestling anyway, but obviously their rules are a little bit different. But the referee mechanics, they all have their own. They all have their own style, but they all look really good when they're doing it. So that's kind of how I started watching you and watching others. I want to get another opinion on what you think about some of these mechanics that I've been seeing lately. And I don't know. I think they think they're doing the right thing, but to me, it looks a little bit silly.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll see referees, they'll hold their hand out for control for a long time. So a kid got a takedown. We stick our hand out and the red's in control. And they'll just walk around for 30 seconds with their hand out. And the guy's clearly on top. And so what do you I mean, really, we should be sticking our hand out, in my opinion, when there's a question, or maybe it's close to the other guy getting away and we're still showing that red's in control. But I just see a lot of guys, the guy will be on top, clearly on top, maybe even, and then he'll have his hand out and he's walking around for 30 seconds or more with one hand out. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, it's very common. I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, yeah, he's in control. He's been in control. But a lot of people do it, and it's one of those things you got to see yourself on video and be like, wow, dude, my hand was out for 45 seconds. Like, probably didn't need to do that. But I'm similar. After I award a takedown, I go down with control. And then if they get in like a position where no one really knows, like you can't really tell who's in control, I'll signal control, and then same in like a rear standing position when they get to their feet, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So just for you new refs, or even refs that have been doing it a long time, if you catch yourself with your hand out for a long time, definitely you don't really need. I mean, we all know that that's the guy's in control. Another one that I've been seeing is similar. Guys holding both hands out, like similar. There's no takedown yet. Like a guy will get in on a single leg, and they're just walking around like they're flying an airplane for who knows how long, and it's kind of clear that nobody has a takedown yet. I think maybe doing it once is okay, but a lot of guys are just holding their hands out for so long when it's pretty clear that there's no takedown yet. Have you seen some of that as well?
Yeah, it's just another thing that's very common. But what I like to do is I'll go no control, and then I'll move a couple steps, get a different point of view, then go no control. I'm always trying to get different points of view when I say there's no control, because if you go to that side, you may see control. So don't get planted in those situations. No control, move around, see if he's established control in a different angle.
Yeah, and one thing I started doing too, because I've been watching college and those guys have microphones, is the wrestlers need to know, and holding your hands out doesn't really tell them if it's close, So I will verbalize still neutral here, and just be verbal so that they know that they can, lock their hands, but they need to know that there's a takedown, because they might have their hands locked and need to let them go. But that's one thing I like to do is I'll say still green if it's like a close reversal, but being verbal, and so the wrestlers can hear me. And I think if you're an official out there, that would go a long way if you're verbal. And like I said, I learned that from watching college, because you can hear them on the TV.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the wrestlers aren't looking at you when they're wrestling most of the time. So it's really important that they can hear what you're saying while the coaches can see your signal.
Yeah. What about this one? So I've seen a lot of, when refs are counting near fall, the mechanic stuff that I've seen, it should be 45 degrees up. And I see a lot of guys, their arm is just kind of either down.
Yeah.
It's just kind of whatever. And to me, I think they look a little unprofessional. But have you seen some of that as well with the near fall counts?
Yeah, everyone has a different way of counting near fall. But yeah, I've definitely seen that. But I agree with you. Definitely at an angle, especially when you're on your belly, you want to be on an angle so they can see it. If you're just going diagonal. Did I say that right? Yeah, if you're going diagonal, and then the coach in the corner over there can't see you over like these big 285 pounders. He doesn't know if you're carrying near fall. He can't see your hands. I mean, he might be able to hear you, but it's good to have that signal.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week about the swipes and being verbal, so that if you can't swipe for whatever reason because you're crawling around or something like that, people know that you're counting near fall. Another one that we did talk about last week, but I'll just touch on real quick because I still saw it a lot this weekend, is the reversal signal before you give the 2. And I think a lot of guys miss near fall when they're doing that. And like a lot of the referees trainings that we did kind of locally, I don't hear anything about like how to signal, but then we started learning that as we travel. So how do we kind of get that out there for more local guys to kind of get better at that?
I was taught it's points first always. So near fall and reversals, you go 3 near fall, then to the shoulder. You don't go back up. You shoulder and then arm down, because I see a lot of officials that go 3 to their shoulder, then 3 back. That's 6 points to an experienced table worker. So it's 3, then to the shoulder, and then for reversal, points first. And say you get in a gnarly situation where you go straight to near fall, you got the points up.
Yeah.
Who cares about the reversal signal? The points are there. The table knows it was a reversal, so start swiping.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of guys, they miss, and especially now with the 4-point near fall, it's so important for you to get those first seconds in. If you think it's a reversal, this right here, I mean, how many near fall points did that kid just miss? And even if you count in your head, you're just asking for trouble from the coaches. Like one of them's going to be mad. Like you didn't swipe.
Yeah, it's just bad optics. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, last one on this. I've seen a lot of, and this is hard because it's a new rule, but it's something that I've worked on and really focused on this year, is letting the action happen on the edge. I see a lot of early whistles where some points are left on the board because whistles are blowing and there should have still been wrestling. Have you seen some of that?
Mm-hmm. It's better late than early.
Yeah. I had one yesterday where I was really proud of sometimes I think to myself, oh, that was a good call. And I don't know if you ever do that, but I was like, the kid got a 3 right on the edge. And the other thing I worked on is giving the points before I blow my whistle, unless it's an escape at the, out of bounds or whatever. But that's one thing that I think helped, was to hold up the 3 and then whistle out. And so is that something that you had to work on when you were a new official?
Yeah, 100%. You're antsy out there. You're not comfortable really. So you're going to you're on the edge. You're not comfortable refereeing on the edge. Cause I mean, what used to be the 2 supporting points, which is a lot harder than the 1. So you're looking at either 2 different wrestlers or 1 different wrestler. So, it was way easier to have an early whistle because there's a lot more stoppages with that, having to have 2 points of contact and bounce. So yeah, like I said, I'd rather blow my whistle late and then be way out of bounds than early with his toe in bounds.
Yeah, and one thing that helped me get better at that was just kind of relaxing and slowing the match down. Because I remember when I was newer, and I think maybe a lot of new officials, you're kind of in a hurry, and you kind of, like they say, don't chase the action and run after them. And you see a lot of refs, they'll get down in like a ready position if something's about to happen, And I've had to really learn to not do that and just kind of stay relaxed and slow things down and just, but really it helped for me to just slow things down. And I think for whatever reason, I felt like I was in a hurry when I was newer.
Same. And how traveling and getting all that mat time in the off season, it just makes you so much more comfortable out there, especially when you come back to your home state. So, I credit the majority of my growth to those off-season tournaments.
Yeah, I've seen you even do kids tournaments on Sunday. So if we were logging mat time, I don't know that there's many officials that have more than you. So,
yeah.
All right. Before we get to this next section, I just want to shout out to our episode sponsor. We're sponsored by Westbrook, a wrestler story made by wrestlers for wrestlers. And Westbrook the movie is dropping soon, starring Adrian Windsor. So when that comes out, we'd love for you guys to go see it. They're really helping us out on the Washington Wrestling Network. So yeah, go see Westbrook when it's ready to go. And then thank you guys. All right, Timmy, this next section, I call it Come On, Man. And this is just some funny stories. So after we play this, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Oh, come on, man.
Now, here's Come On, Man.
All right. So, Timmy, these are funny stories that you hear coaches, and I'll start with you to kind of get us going. But we were at this tournament last weekend, and we had a lot of stuff going on. But I was doing a girls match, and the girl she was on her back, and she was eye gouging the girl that was.
Oh.
And the girl on the top was like, my eyes. And so in the case book, it does say that a referee can reach up and pull the hands off because you don't want to ruin their pinning situation. And so I reached up to pull her hands off the face. And after the match, she ended up getting pinned there. So I didn't have to call like technical violation or 5 near fall or anything. But the coach, he said, don't ever touch my wrestler again. And I said, I'm not, what do you mean? And he goes, yeah, you grabbed her hands and pulled it off her face. And I said, Coach, I will always protect a wrestler's eyes. And it's actually in the case book that I can pull her hand off her face. But just the way he said it was like I maybe did something that I touched her in a weird way. I don't know. But clearly all I did was grab her hand. But it was just funny to me how I think a lot of coaches need to really, not just a rule book, but the case book has so much more stuff in it that talks about different situations. So yeah, what you got? Any funny stories recently that have happened or that you can think of?
Yeah. One of them was at a tournament that I was doing last Sunday, and it was last Sunday, I believe. Yeah. And the coach, I wasn't on my mat, but I overheard it because he was so loud. Something got stopped for potentially dangerous, and then he goes, "What is this? The Boy Scouts?" That was the funniest one that I've heard recently. Awesome. And
that's awesome.
There was another one. Oh, I was down in Oregon, and the coach, I hit his kid for stalling. I don't know what kind of situation it was, but I rung him up. and he's like, "Do you even know what stalling is?" Like, had his hands out, and he looked to the crowd, like trying to get their enthusiasm.
Uh-huh.
That kind of made me laugh.
Yeah, those kind of I like it when coaches are funny like that. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I coached for over 10, almost 15 years, and so I was actually one of the coaches that would say stuff like that. And so sometimes the coach will actually come up and apologize to me afterwards and say, I think coaches need to fight for their guys. It's just part of the competition, and I think a lot of referees get upset and flustered when that happens. And I think if you just take it with a grain of salt and you can kind of chuckle under your breath, but definitely if you're a referee out there, like I did talk about it last week, is just not engaging with the coaches too much, and when they're going to say stuff, and you just got to ignore it and be confident in your call. Like if you know what stalling is, then hey, it's stalling, and usually one coach is going to be pissed. It doesn't matter like who you call it on. So all right, here's another one I had. Same tournament, Timmy. Down 14 to 0. Okay, kid's about to get teched. Coach is mad, and he on the corner of the kid who's winning, they had a bunch of kids around the chairs. And a lot of tournaments this happens, and that's not something that I like to police because it gets me kind of out of my game. I need to really stay focused on what I'm doing. So I'm not big on telling two coaches in the corner or whatever. And a lot of times it happens during the match. And so I didn't see him come up there anyway. But his kid is down 14-0, and he goes, "How many are they allowed to have in the corner? This is effing ridiculous." And he said it loud and he cussed. And so I ended up giving it unsportsmanlike.
Oh, man.
And he afterwards, he's like, "Why'd you give me an unsportsmanlike?" And I said, "Well, because you told me it was effing ridiculous." And he goes, "Oh, yeah." And but I just thought it was funny that his kid's losing 14-0, and now he wants to complain about people in the corner. It was
you gave him what he was fishing for.
Yeah. Okay, same tournament. We had heavy cross faces, and the coach didn't like it, and he wanted to know what the standard was. And so I want to get your opinion on standards, because honestly, I don't know that there is a standard. It's just, does the referee feel like it was unnecessary force? In different areas, apparently, different counties, different states, you're going to find different ways of calling it. So what are your thoughts on when you see a heavy crossface or like a forearm to the back of the head? Is it a feeling? Is it just something that you're like, oh, he wound up, or how do you?
Yeah, it's definitely, if he's coming. So if you got a cross right here and go right there from here, I see that as legal, and you can generate a lot of force from that position. But the ones I see you like come from right field or left field and go, I'm going to call that. But I'm all for a good crossface. I think it's, a good move to get in position. And then as far as the forearm on the back of the head, that one, I mean, I give them about 2 inches of room for them to like penetrate. If it's any higher than like that too, I'm gonna call unnecessary roughness, because you shouldn't be coming from like down like a punch. It should be more like a jab, I would say.
Yeah. After my last podcast, we did have a listener send me an email with a video of kind of a forearm to the back of the head. And the first one, I agree, was unnecessary roughness, but the referee did not call it. And then somebody yelled from the stands, and then the next one was not a very hard crossface, and then he called that. And I think that's where he got in trouble, was he hesitated on the first one and he called the second one, which wasn't bad at all. And so
it was like a makeup call.
Yeah, and I think you're really going to get yourself in trouble if you do that. And so that's the hard part, is we have to make those calls without like a slam, without hesitation. So it's like, I call a slam on this one, but maybe it wasn't. But I think it's just hard. Some of those calls, it's like, was it too hard? Was it not? And so that's one thing I want coaches and wrestlers to understand, is those are not easy calls to make. Like, was it a good crossface? Was it not? Was it a forearm shiver to the back of the head, WWE style, or, So it's hard to make it, and you have to do it right in the moment. If you wait, then people are going to be like, oh, you listen to the coaches, or oh, you listen to the fans. And so just a tough call to make, and you really got to make it in real time.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. One thing another coach said to me, and it's kind of a thing that they'll do to complain to refs without really complaining to refs. They're acting like they're talking to the wrestler, is if they'll say something like, don't let him push you out. And so, like, if a guy's backing out of bounds, have you heard some coaches say stuff like that?
I've heard shoot him out.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear don't
Now,
push.
what? Okay, so let's talk. Sorry, what?
Can you say it again?
Sorry, you were cutting out there for a second.
Can you hear me? No.
I hear you now. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So you said you heard shoot him out. What are your thoughts on that? Is if it, in the rule book, doesn't it say pushing him out of bounds is stalling?
Yeah, but shooting's not pushing. It's a
Right.
working for a score. It's making yourself vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I wish coaches would say, don't let him push you out more. Wrestle in the circle. I want the least amount of stoppages possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm going to talk about that next week a little bit on the podcast with my guest, is kind of the flow of the match and a lot of all the stoppages. So I'm excited about that one. Okay. Last one on this segment, girls rules, which I have refrained from calling a lot of their garment stuff because I don't want to be one of those referees on a video, making the girl change. And I had a girl wearing long sleeves compression shirt, and in the rule book, it does say that you have to with short sleeve. But if it's religious, it can be long sleeve, and they can wear long pants and a head thing, whatever it might be. And there was a girl wearing long sleeve, and I just let it go. And the coach was adamant that I had to make her take it off. And so I did. But what are your thoughts on the girls' garment stuff, and how often do you enforce that stuff?
I 100% stay out of it. Like,
unless
it's
too.
like, pretty much 99% of the time I just turn a blind eye. I just don't want to be even. It's awkward. It's weird for me to bring that stuff up. So
because the rule book. So if you're a coach out there and you coach girls, please have them with the right garments, because the rule book talks about their underwear having to cover, all of it, and their sports bra having to cover all of it. And that's not something that any of us referees want to police. But then if the other coach says something, then we're going to have to probably call it. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And that's the only situation where I'd probably enforce it, is if the opposing coach pointed it out, because it's not a comfortable place for me to be, and I don't want to have those conversations if I don't have to.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on. We're going to the next one. This is probably my favorite segment. So this is where we talk about mistakes we've made, and here we go.
The Real Ref Report.
Oh no! We suck again!
Now it's time for
You suck, ref!
Ref, you suck.
That was funny.
So we're not bashing referees here. We're talking about ourselves. These are mistakes that we've made, hopefully that we have learned from them, and other referees can learn from our mistakes. But actually, it was a funny one the other day at that same tournament. I had a fan that was in the back tell me that I was horrible because a kid I had to DQ. He had two locking hands. Then he did a choke where he choked around the neck, and then he grabbed the shoulder. And so I called that. And then the very last one was from the edge of the mat. The kid was in the center. He bull rushed and headbutted him. And I called unnecessary roughness. And that was it. And so there was a fan. I went to get some water in between matches, and he just straight to my face said, "You're horrible. You need to learn how to ref." And I was like, I told him, I said, I don't really care what you think. But it was just funny that definitely sometimes we do get told we suck even when we make the right calls. But I'll start just because I have this one on my mind. And this is more of an advanced stuff. I pride myself on being able to make calls in sequence when a lot of stuff happens. So let's say you get a back points and then the kid bridges off for reversal and then he's getting back points. And so you're having to count near fall for him. And so now you got to go 3 near fall red, 2 reversal green, 3 near fall green. Well, this happened in Reno, and then there was another reversal to the back and so I actually had to stop the match and get all the points straightened out, and I was mad at myself. But that's one of those ones where you really want to get it in sequence, and if you do it right, you can count it. But I just had 3 sets of near fall and 2 reversals, and it really messed me up. And I was like, "You suck, Andy! Like, come on." So, have you had any recently, or any? You can talk about one that when you were new for new officials, and one when you were kind of at a high level.
Oh, when I sucked.
Yeah.
Or when I still have room to improve. Yeah. So the first one, it was my first. I was getting evaluated to be a varsity official, like 7 years ago or something. 7 years ago. My first evaluation. I'm all gung ho, nervous. So we're in referee position. The top wrestler has double legs in, and he got really high. So the bottom wrestler bucked him off and grabbed the head and got the top wrestler in near fall criteria. So I throw 2 reversal and start swiping, and the top wrestler still had his legs in. And like 4 seconds later, he pops his head out. He's back on top. And he never lost control.
Right.
He was just in bad position.
And he wasn't pinned or anything, so there was really, yeah, that's tough. But you did give at least a reversal first before you swiped, right?
Probably not. I probably did the signal.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's just one of those ones where you see it and you get more experience. And what about like any?
I failed my first evaluation to be a varsity.
Oh no!
Official. Yeah.
Oh well, you've come a long way, so it's okay.
Second shot, so it's all good.
All right.
And then one like at a bigger tournament.
Yeah.
Let me think about that. Probably being late on like a Jonesy. I got hit, and it was when I hadn't, probably one of the first or second times I've ever seen it, when I was traveling, and I was out of position, and everyone was,
some people call that a cutback. Sorry, like when you're in a single leg and then drop them to
okay. Well, no, not that.
Or a mousetrap
from referee position.
Okay,
it's a popular move. It involves the legs, and it's kind of like a tilt. You hit it from a defensive position.
Okay.
And so it's really funky. It looks funky, and you got to know, because they're both kind of in criteria, but you got to see the hold and who's really in control there. So I was late, missed like probably 3 backs, and I think the kid lost because of it.
That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being honest with all those, and just so everybody out there knows, like, there are situations where, dang it, we mess up and we get better and we learn, and the more experience we get. So if you got a new official, if you're a coach and you know that the official is new, let's try to be gracious with them, and you can talk to them afterwards, maybe just discuss things. But it's a tough thing, and I know of a lot of officials that have actually quit because they mess something up like that, and then the coaches just get on them and on them and on them, and there's no, we don't have to deal with that, and so we don't get paid enough to deal with that. And some people just don't want to, they got jobs, they got families, and deal with that negativity. And so if you're a coach, if you're a wrestler, just understand that some of those situations, it's a tough call, even for experienced referees. So we want to encourage everybody to have some understanding when that happens, and have some grace for the ref, and just be okay with sometimes it's not gonna go your way, and it's gonna be a mistake.
Yeah, that's one thing I really love about officiating is you're gonna make mistakes on the mat, but once you make it, I mean, I don't. Once I make a mistake on the mat, like it's ingrained in my mind, and I rarely make that mistake again. It's kind of just I got better because I made that mistake, and then like, oh yeah, that's how you call it, or just the building your judgment with the stalling, all that kind of stuff. That takes time, and yeah.
Yeah, one more I want to show is just I got a couple photos in the rule book, and I screwed this up, I'm pretty sure, a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I think the coach that will know, but there's a photo on here. It's on page 76, number 78. And I don't even really know what this move is called. I think some people call it a can opener or other thing. I mean, I've heard all different names. So, but if you look on picture number 78 on 76, it's the first time I ever saw it, and the kid turned to his back. And this one's illegal if you're on the elbow. So I'm going to hold that up there. If you're just listening right now, it's kind of under the waist and on the elbow, grabbing the wrist with the right hand, with one hand. So this one's illegal, and I want to show you how close it is to the legal one, where you're just a little bit higher up off the elbow. And so I saw this, and it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And the kid on bottom turned over so quick, and this picture flashed in front of my eyes, and I stopped the match and called it illegal. And so really, I don't know, but in hindsight, personally, since the kid went over so quick, maybe I shouldn't have called it at all. What do you think about that?
I mean, the pressure might have been there. I mean, I've never seen that hold before, but I mean, I could see pressure definitely being generated, even if he twerked it a little bit. So that he either was a fish or he got turned because there was pressure.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want him to get turned. He turned over so quick, and it's kind of like a chin whip. You know, sometimes those chin whips happen so fast that you're like, oh well, it's not there anymore. But did he use that to put the kid on his back? And so those are really also tough calls to make, where it's already happened. The kid's on his back, and now you have to stop it and say that was illegal. And it's like, was it really? It happened so fast. So just another one of those ones where people have a little grace for us. We're trying to keep kids safe, and we want to apply the rules. But just a couple pictures there I wanted to show. All right, Timmy, you ready for the last one? I'm going to put you on blast just a little bit, if that's all right.
The video? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. This is the last section. This is what's the call?
This is the Real Ref Report. Now, what's the call?
What's the call?
Okay, I got to tell everybody, I'm a little biased because this was my nephew that was wrestling. I got permission from Timmy to talk about this one. So the situation was he was down by 1, and he was on bottom, and time was running out, and he stood up, and I've got the video here. So if you're just watching or you're just listening and not watching, he kind of stands up, and he gets to his feet, and it's kind of in a bundle situation. So let's I'm going to present this real quick. Let me get to the right window here. All right, so you should be able to see that. So he stands up, and he kind of faces him. He has head position, and the kid has kind of a bundle situation, but he definitely is on his feet. I'm going to rewind it just to go in slow motion here. He's backing away from him on his feet, and I looked in the rule book, and it does say that you need to have a body lock once you're on your feet to not be an escape. So now that you look at this one, Timmy, do you have any different thoughts about it?
Okay, play it again.
Okay, here we go. So he gets up. His time is running out. We're going slow motion here. So the kid on top has a kind of a bundle, almost a 2-on-1, but he kind of does have both arms, and he's got head.
Yes. So yeah, he had both arms bundled up. Honestly, I could see it. That would have tied it up. They went to overtime. Yeah, I could see an escape, then duke it out in overtime. But
yeah,
at the same time, so you saw in the rule book, it says you have to have a body lock. The
body lock is what stops it. Yeah. So okay. I mean, obviously, there's probably more situations than just a body lock, but
yeah.
What are your thoughts on? Does an escape change a little bit with the loss of control at the buzzer, out of bounds or at the buzzer?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. It's more on the edge, I believe. than if I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean,
definitely a tough call, but my opinion is
what
like,
do you think? Yeah, what do you think?
I looked up the definition of control, and one of them was the guy could not go 5 feet in any direction if he tried. So in this case, he probably could back up 5 feet if he wanted to. He kind of did. And then I did see that when there's an escape and they're on their feet, that the body, once the hands are broken, then it's an escape. But that's a tough call. Like you told the coach that he still had that bundled up, and I don't think any of us would give the escape yet, right? Like if it was still 30 seconds left.
You could argue a lost control, which I could see.
Right.
That, yeah.
Right. So I think in real time, if there was 30 seconds left, no escape yet. But then definitely, maybe, well, not definitely. It's a tough call, but obviously
you're talking me into it. I kind of agree with you.
Okay. All right. So if my nephew out there, I did talk to my brother, but my brother said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. He was gassing out anyway. He would have got taken down." So
no, I could see a lost control there when time expired. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Okay, we got one more What's the Call video, and I'm going to actually show this college video because this happened in a high school duel the other day that I was at, and the referee called it a pin. And in this video, this is a spladle. So if you're just listening and you're not watching, this is a spladle position, and some spladles are a little bit different, but in this case, definitely I don't know if you saw this, but
yeah,
so this is Brock Hardy, and it's not playing now. So he gets put in a spladle, and this official gives a reversal, but no near fall. And a lot of people are like, "Ref, you're an idiot. Why are you not counting near fall?" And so I looked up. I already knew, but I looked up just to be sure what the criteria for near fall is. And you have to have one shoulder on the mat and 45 degrees. And I get a lot of people that think it's 90. And I teach sixth grade math, so I know what 45 degrees is. But so in this case, he does not have a shoulder touching. The other one would be on 2 elbows, which he does not have 2 elbows touching. Another one would be 4 inches from the mat, and it doesn't look like he's pinning.
You could argue. I think his shoulder blades are raised.
Close enough? You think they're close?
No, I think they're raised more than 4 inches because his whole upper body's on Jesse Mendes' belly.
Right. So that position right there, that official did not give any points there. They sat there for like a minute, and nothing happened. And I saw this a pretty much exact position. The ref called it a pin, and I've got a photo here. I think a lot of officials think that the pinning surface is different than what it is, that it's lower. And this is a photo of the pinning surface in the rule book. So you can see the white line. If you're just looking, it's below the scapula, it's right in the middle of the back or so. So I've seen a couple kids sitting up pretty high, like this guy. One was in a cradle and one was in the spladle, and the referee called a pin. So I just want to get it out there that also what I've seen in college, and I think a lot of referees miss, is that tilt that's pretty popular, where you get the cross wrist and then you just roll and get your 4 near fall. If you're on one elbow, that should not be near fall according to the rule book. Agreed?
Correct. Did you go over the hybrid? Did you go over the high bridge yet?
No. Okay, so that was the other one, a high bridge. Now we did see that in another match earlier. If you're in a high bridge, does it still have to be 45 degrees?
No,
it doesn't specify. No,
high bridge supersedes the 4 inches. I think.
So or what about not the 4 inches, but does it have to be 45 degrees?
No.
So if you're in a hybrid.
No, I mean, can you get a high? You can't do a high bridge without being 45, can you?
Some kids are twist pretty good. I've seen it. There's been some pretty good twisting there, but they're still in a high bridge. So would that still near fall?
Yeah, I think a high bridge, if they're on the ball of the head, and pass. Yeah, if they're on the ball of their head, I'm counting.
Yeah. So definitely there's some criteria to near fall. I don't think everybody knows all of it, that you do have to be on a shoulder if it's 45 degrees or a high bridge. But if you're on one elbow, that is not near fall. And I've seen that as a defense to that tilt, because you got your other elbow free, even though you are 45 degrees. If you're sitting on one elbow, that should not be swipes. According to what the rule is. And I've seen it in college, but I think a lot of high school referees might miss that. And coaches and wrestlers, I'm not sure, know all of those criteria.
Yeah, there's a really good video out there. There was a match at the Cliff Key Invitational this year. The near fall scenario was called perfectly. He got a lot of slack, but from like the wrestling official community, it was a great call for if you know what you're looking at.
Yeah, that guy was getting tilted on one elbow, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So wrestlers, if you're getting tilted, get up on one elbow. That's a good defense to that, because one elbow is not near fall yet, as long as you're not within 4 inches. Also, the pinning surface, I think a lot of people say his shoulder wasn't down, and we're not necessarily looking for the shoulder, but the scapula for 2 seconds, which I've been known to, or not know. I don't think they're quick, but I've heard some complaints that I call quick pins, and maybe I need to see some video and actually see it. But it's actually not my favorite thing as a ref, I'll admit, crawling around on the mat, like when they're close and having to move like army crawl all over the place forever. That's like actually my least favorite thing about officiating.
Yeah, I don't think you call quick pin. I don't think you call quick pins, but I know that you're consistent. Okay. So as long as you're consistent, they should know what to expect, you know.
Good. All right. Well, I appreciate that. All right, Timmy, I don't have anything else. So I just want to let you know once again, I really appreciate you and how you've helped me kind of learn and get to big tournaments, the Freak Show, to Rocky Mountain Nationals and Raleigh Lane. I've gotten to do some really big stuff because of the people that I've met through you. And so I just want to say thanks to you for all of that and for just your continued support. And I want to say, you know, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate how good you've been to me. So thanks for all that. And so what, you have any last final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, anytime. It's always good to have a travel buddy. I'm sure we'll be working a lot this off season together. And yeah, thank you for having me. This was cool. First podcast.
Yeah. I'm hoping to try to get into Disney duels with you, but we'll see. I got to get into one of those qualifiers, and
I can help you. I can help you out.
Easy group of crap.
No, it definitely it took me a while to crack that circle.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate it. And just real quick, I want to let everybody know I will be back with episode 3 next week with By the Book Bob Turner himself. So I'm excited about it. If you don't know who By the Book Bob Turner is, you will get to know him next week. And he has given me full support to ask him any questions, and he will be 100% transparent. We talk about the Ording to Homa duel, some of those things. And I'm just really looking forward to it, to get his thoughts on officiating, as he's been doing it a long time. So thanks again, Timmy. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time, bud.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and keeping it real with The Real Ref Report. Don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review. And be sure to follow Andy on Instagram and YouTube at The Real Ref Report. Thanks again for listening as we make reffing great again.